Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Could Panther City get a win, an inch even closer to a home playoff spot? Or would Calgary prove to be too much in their first matchup against each other this season? Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Panther City honestly had a lot to prove coming into this week's matchup against Calgary. We kind of mentioned it last week. There seems to be a very clear line between the top two teams in the division with San Diego and Calgary and pretty much everyone else in the division.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're San Diego and Calgary are definitely a clear cut above the rest of them, though the jury was still out since this was our first game against them. Who's to say how we would have done?
Well, and yeah, not only that, but we were only one game behind them.
Yeah, yeah, and so had we won this game, then it would have created a tie for that second seed in the West. So, and for a little bit of history, Coach TK and Calgary's coach Kurt Malosky are former Calgary teammates.
Yeah.
So they probably had a bit of a friendly rivalry going into this.
It was kind of funny that they showed that during the broadcast where they went to the back, like behind, I guess behind the scenes or whatever, towards the locker rooms. And there's Tracy Kelusky's like number retired right there, and then his name's up in the rafters. And like, I mean, it's good for him. I mean, coming back to where he played most of his years, but still, as a coach, I'm sure he has a different feeling behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's all team PCLC at this point, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's always interesting seeing Coach TK though with hair. I'll admit, because I didn't know him, when he played there, and I've known him since just coaching Panther City. But he's always not had hair, and so seeing pictures of him or highlights of him, it's like, oh yeah,
shaved head and smelling salts. Those are his trademarks.
right. Oh, we gotta touch on that smelling salts because that we brought that up after the first half, but. Quick shout out though to Calgary. They did have a cool theme night. It was superhero night, so I mean I thought that was kind of cool to have just kind of everybody. It seemed like most of the people, most of the kids in the stands were dressed up for the night.
Yeah, it was fun to see the different costumes from obviously, I guess there were a ton of Marvel costumes and DC as well. There was Wonder Woman, Hulk was on the screen a decent amount of the time, Iron Man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really cool that a lot of these teams do those theme nights and just kind of get, more people interested in coming out. But the first quarter, I have to admit, the first few minutes of the first quarter, I thought we were playing really good. It seemed to be like we were limiting their shots, or at least quality shots, and for the most part, keeping Calgary at bay, especially towards the beginning of the first quarter.
Yeah, they didn't get any buckets in transition, so that was good to see. When teams were getting shots off, whether it be Panther City or Calgary, both Nick Damude and Christian Del Bianco were doing a great job keeping the ball out of the net.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Del Bianco for sure, because what a night for him, I hate to say, but yeah, their first goal didn't come until 5 minutes in. And it's kind of funny because I was actually watching this at a friend's house, and right before I was just like, man, I think we're doing pretty good, keeping their offense at bay. And then sure enough, just 5 minutes in, and they get a quick goal by King.
Yeah, that would be a foreshadowing for kind of a recurring theme.
Well, and true, but it felt like the first quarter was just different. Like we were playing a lot harder, rushing to the ball a lot faster, getting some rebounds. Even being down 1-0, it didn't feel like the previous games where we're down 1-0 like a minute into the game. So it just seemed like we were kind of playing up to the standard we needed to play at the beginning, especially since after they went up 1-0, it wasn't but a few minutes later, Caputo, gets in there and gets a goal and ties us up pretty fast.
Yeah, that was a great shot by him, absorbing the contact from the defender and having he almost, I don't know how many of his shots are these, but he had I think the ball bounced into the goal, like it bounced before it crossed over the plane, and he's gotten really good at this.
Oh yeah, and obviously a critical part of the offense, especially that night. But being tied up for most of the first quarter was good. Calgary unfortunately did score again with a few minutes left. I just put down on my notes. I mean, that was just kind of a weird goal because it like Damoud blocked
Yeah.
it, but it like bounced behind him.
Yeah. So I guess Waters kind of tagged Dami's shoulder, and it was one of those situations where the trajectory of it after it made contact of him was just unlucky.
Yeah, and so you even with that, I didn't really feel like we were playing bad.
Hmm.
Overall, I mean, I felt like we did a really good job keeping them to 2 goals in the first quarter.
Yeah, with as high firepowered as their offense is, especially in the transition game, to limit a team like Calgary to just two is really good to start out.
Yeah, and speaking of Del Bianco, I mean, yes, us getting a 1 goal is good. Obviously, you wanted more, but you kind of expected that performance to start out for that night.
Yeah. On the other side, it did seem like there was a bit of I don't know if you'd call it nervousness, but there were quite a few bobbled balls that I noticed, and players were often looking to make moves on offense or to shoot before they really established control of the ball in the cradle. Plus, credit to Calgary, they were getting their sticks and they're pretty good with some timely checks.
Well, and that's something we've talked about in previous games, just making sure that passes are clean. I hate to use an old baseball terminology, but keeping your eye on the ball. You have to
Right.
almost growing up, my dad used to say whenever you're going to catch a ball, you have to see it into your mitt. It's the same
Hmm.
thing here. You have to make sure that you catch the ball or you receive the ball before you do anything else, and sometimes they get ahead of themselves.
Yeah, it reminded you of kind of a football player when a receiver or running back is looking ahead and the pitch or the pass slips out of his hands because he's already mentally moved on to the next step in the play.
Right, but that's the kind of the important stuff. It's little, but it's important. So down 2-1 in the first, it felt I felt pretty good about where we were. The second quarter seemed like it started out a little bit more of the same. It seemed like our defense was playing pretty good. Still not really any good shots from us, but again, mainly keeping them at bay is the best way I can put it. They did get another score. I think it was Cook. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cook gets up 3-1. Unfortunately, that was like the tipping point. It was like we could hold our water up until then, and then just the dam broke.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how else to explain it.
absolutely. Just I mean, kind of ironically, the dam breaking Waters scored next.
Yeah, I mean, he gets a quick goal, and then like not a minute later after that, Dixon, I think.
Yes.
I literally wrote the question like what happened in 3 minutes that we had been doing so well up until that point.
Yeah, I don't really know what it was. It just when it rains, it pours. It was that sort of night for the goalies on our end.
hmm and speaking about the goalie on the other end, Del Bianco, man, every shot we got, even we couldn't even get close to him. First of all, it seemed like, and then every shot he was blocking or he would like go after the ball a little bit more, and he maybe not had has he didn't have as many like outlet passes or anything like that night, but it seemed like he was playing a lot solider defense in the goal.
Yeah, it's a tough enough challenge to get an open, clear look against Calgary. And once you get that clear look, you just got to deal with Del Bianco in the net and trying to get past his elite goalkeeping abilities. So definitely an uphill climb. And that second quarter, once they went on that 4 goal run, then that put us in a hole that was just it'd be hard to catch up from that deficit against any team, but
Mhm.
against a defense like Calgary's and Del Bianco in particular,
Yeah, I mean, you knew that's who you were going, that kind of standard of defense and goalie is what you were going against, and you had to definitely try to adjust a little bit more and play a little bit better, you know, have that better mindset. But for the most part, he just shut him down. I mean, especially in that second quarter. Speaking of that, going on that 4-0 run, we got a power play, and I was like, okay, cool. Maybe we can get a goal. Maybe we can start catching back up. No, I mean, shorthanded, didn't matter. They got a goal on us. It didn't take, I think it took about a minute off the power play.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, I know Caputo got them back shortly after on, so that it was nice to stop the bleeding.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of that last goal, especially the shorthanded one, they pulled Damoud. I thought to myself when that happened, when has this worked in our favor this year?
Typically, when you do that, it's kind of a not a last resort, but a change in Coach TK strategy. I know on the telecast they said Damien wasn't happy about it. I mean, what goalie would be? You want to be out there playing your best.
Right. Well, and that I honestly wrote that question in there. Like, it's to the point in the season where I understand you want to try to change the attitude and change the momentum, but I mean, you have to let him weather the storm. You have to let him. I hate to say, learn from your mistakes, but he's not going to learn if he's on the bench.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, but I can see it going both ways in that if he's not able to get the job done on any given night, then you have Cam McLeod who can do the best he can and is a capable goal protector himself.
And I'll give McLeod credit. He came in. He didn't allow another goal the rest of the second quarter, so that at least helped us a little bit. You said obviously Caputo got another goal, but overall, man, that second quarter was just rough. I mean, Caputo was the only person who got any goals.
Yeah, in the first half.
The offense was just not almost non-existent in the second quarter. You know, where's our people? Where's Malcolm? Where's Dodds? Where's anyone?
Yeah, I guess they had a really good game plan. But one thing about Caputo, regardless of whether the shot's going or not, he is going to play aggressive.
Mhm.
And yeah, whether that's his shot making ability, setting picks, trying to open other guys up, just disrupting the defense as best he can. That's probably a big reason why we still, in theory, had a chance.
So we go into halftime down 6-2. It feels a lot wider gap than it actually is. 4 goals in lacrosse. We see them catch up, almost in no time sometimes. Get 2 or 3 goals right off the bat. But it just felt different. And so after halftime, I mean, again, halftime adjustments, man. They are. If there was a gold sticker for teams who made halftime adjustments consistently throughout the season, it'd be Panther City because like their defense was playing good again. Cam McLeod was playing really good. Offense still still having problems, but at least it seemed like they were more aggressive at the beginning of the second or beginning of the third quarter.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot more movement both sides on the ball. The defense did seem a bit more pushy and aggressive, and definitely knocked Calgary around a bit. McLeod had some great athletic saves, just moving from goalpost to goalpost. Granted, Delbienko was doing the same thing
Right.
for the start of it too.
Well, and yeah, so that actually set up for a third quarter where not a whole lot was happening score wise, but it was just a lot of back and forth. Um, finally, 10 minutes in, I put in here, a Malcolm shows up. Tony Malcolm, though.
Yeah, he had a beautiful goal in transition off of. I think McLeod got the assist on it, if I'm
Yeah,
not
he did.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was nice to see him get on the action, especially on a night when, speaking of guys that didn't seem to play up to their usual standards, Josh Medeiros wasn't able to get on the scoreboard.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It just seemed like our normal people we're used to seeing, you know, make those goals and make those offensive possessions, really hectic for the other team, just weren't there, and I don't know why. But Tony Malcolm gets a goal when Griniak, he got in there, got a goal. Which it's funny. Quick side note: apparently, when Griniak had a ton of his like family and friends at the game,
No,
because
nice.
he had like his own fan section.
Oh, that's
um,
awesome.
yeah, so he was trying to show up a little bit for that game. And after his goal, I thought to myself, is this what we needed to kind of get back into the game a little bit more? Because next thing you know, it's like 6-4, and not really, unfortunately. There's a power play shortly after that, and a goal by Pace from Calgary, and then I think he scored again right before the end of the quarter.
Yes.
And at that point, it's like Calgary was starting to kind of pull away a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, that was disappointing, especially when they cut our little streak. Because I know Malcolm wasn't happy when he got that penalty,
Yeah.
and you never want to lose a key offensive player on a penalty. So it's just, yeah, it took the wind out of our sails a bit, and instead of being being down just two or maybe even less, had that not happened, you're kind of back where you started.
Yeah, for sure. And so you know, the third quarter, it seems like we did make some good adjustments, and again, keeping them to only 2 goals says a lot. You know, based on their offensive production that they've had this year, but still, in the third, we're still halfway behind them, down 8-4, and then the fourth quarter, and I don't know. For me, it just felt like the best analogy I can explain. Did you ever watch wrestling when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Ultimate Warrior?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
so the Ultimate Warrior, for those of you who don't know, was famous for being just a hype of energy. Like he ran to the ring, he shook the ropes, he jumped in. He would always have these shorter kind of matches because he would blow himself up, quote unquote, blow himself up, and spend all of his energy within the first 5 or 10 minutes of the match, and then by that point he's spent and he's just running on gas and fumes. After that. Um, I felt like that's what happened in the fourth. Like we had just the first quarter, kind of the same thing. We spent all of our, high powered hypeness and whatever you want to call it in the first quarter. In the second quarter, we were just running on fumes. Same thing here. Third quarter, it seemed like we came out really just aggressive and doing our part and getting back in the game. And then after the wind got kind of knocked out of our sails, like you said, the fourth quarter just kind of felt like we spent all of our energy.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely did not seem as energetic. I know the first goal that Calgary scored was that Simpson
Mhm.
fast break, and for him to go the distance unassisted and score on McLeod, who up to that point had been playing pretty well. It is deflating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, Simpson and King, they both got goals, putting them up. At that point they were up 10-4. Will Malcolm did get a goal with about 9 minutes left, so 10-5. But after that, again, it was just more Calgary. They get a couple more goals. I really didn't have a whole lot of notes for fourth quarter because, like I said, by that time it felt like we were wore out, I guess, or wore down, and just kind of going through a lot of the motions still. And there was energy there, but just it was nowhere where we needed it to be.
Yeah, they cut into that deficit with less than 10 minutes left. That's not impossible, but given Calgary's personnel and how good they are as a team overall, yeah, that's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, the final there is 12-5, and it's funny looking back on our predictions. So, I had said that this was going to be a loss. I was hoping that we would have a little bit more goals. I didn't think it would be this big of a deficit. And you had joked about like, oh, I thought you were going to say it was a 9 point deficit. I mean, 7 points is a pretty big deficit. So, and then of course, your guess was 13 was the magic number, and neither team even did that.
Yeah, yeah, they must have heard me and been like, "All right, we're gonna shut this guy up."
We're gonna shut down right at 12.
Mhm.
But no, just looking at the overall game, I guess a part of me. So again, those of you who follow us on social media, I really was happy and kind of proud that Panther City was highlighted as the NLL game of the week. And win or loss, I mean, it's really good for the team to get that exposure.
Yes.
Um, but it's just like I wish it was a better performance, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You obviously want a better showing the more exposure that a specific game gets. You want to do good regardless, but having those extra eyes, especially for a young second year team, would really help out. I know we did in the Vegas game, we obviously
Mhm.
played well, but yeah, this one with playoff seeding on the line, it was just kind of a disappointing performance.
Yeah, and so it's obviously something we can kind of grow from. But yeah, uh, my overall like just thinking about the game, it was off to a good start, but it kind of unfortunately went downhill from there. And we'll go over our final thoughts here in a bit, but yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more, I guess, and but it really does show just kind of where Calgary and San Diego are in the division. It's just crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, and um, I know Calgary, their next game's against Vegas, right?
I think
So,
so.
like, theoretically, we can still tie with them if Vegas beats them and if we beat them in the finale.
Hmm.
I think that'd cause a tie. However, they do have the point differential
Right.
advantage, and we'd have to score like crazy and goaltend like crazy in order to
Right,
get
which
that in
isn't
our favor.
it's not impossible, but yeah, that's something we will have to look to here in a few weeks. But well, of course, we go from that and talk about. Uh, there wasn't a whole lot of stats, I guess, to look at. Maybe more negative ones than positive ones. But of course, we're talking about Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do you have for us against Calgary this week?
I mean, the way I see it, every game is a learning experience, and looking at the statistics obviously gives you data to look at that you can kind of learn and figure out where to improve on.
Mhm.
Nick Damude, he only played 25 minutes. In those 25 minutes, he was only able to save 2/3 of the shots on goal that Calgary put on him. He went 12 for 18. McLeod did pretty solid. He saved 22 out of 28 shots that he faced with, and he did pretty well. But it was just overall our offense just wasn't clicking on the night, which makes life a lot more difficult for the goalies and the defense overall. Del Bianco, on the other flip side, he saved an astounding 32 of 37, so he was at a stellar 86.4% save percentage, and you can see why among all the goalies in the league, he's the one that's getting the most MVP love by far.
Mhm.
And that's not even going into what he's able to bring on the other side of the ball uh, with his outlet passing. I Panther City actually did a pretty good job shutting down their transition game for the most part, but Del Bianco is still who he is in between the pipes. Calgary also had 10 more shots on goal than us, and they converted 26% of theirs to our 17%. So that quality of shot making isn't really going to help you. We did lose the loose ball battle 63 to 54. That wasn't as bad a deficit as it wasn't after the first half, which goes to show that yes, Panther City did play with more aggression and probably had a little bit more luck as well, just getting some more loosies to even out that a little bit. However, overall, once the night ended, Calgary did win the CTO game with 16 caused turnovers. We were only able to cause 9 of them. So again, there were pockets and glimpses of what Panther City could do, especially on the defensive end, but it was just Calgary just played a more complete game.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean the score showed that. I mean, you could just tell like quarter by quarter, looking at not only the score but just even the stats themselves. That yes, there, like you said, there were those glimpses and there were those bursts of stuff kind of going in our favor, but overall, Calgary was there to play, and they played very, like you said, a more complete game. But well, of course, that is Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Thank you for that. We go on to, again, I know it was a low scoring affair, but there were a few cool cat plays of the game. For you, I mean, what was your cool cat play of the game for this one?
There were 3 that stuck out to me. Caputo's second goal, he got close to the net and put a series of fakes on Del Bianco before being able to get it over. I think it was over his shoulder. It might have been 5-hole, but it was a really nice kind of just forward versus the goalie one-on-one sort of situation that Caputo won out in. Tony Malcolm, his goal in transition was great, and transition goals are always great in terms of, I know it was a road game, but in terms of getting fans pumped and excited and being like, all right, let's go, just because they're almost like icing on the cake, so to speak. So that was a really good play. And lastly, McLeod, he did have a solid game in net, subbing in for Damude. There was one save in the third quarter where I think he shifted his body from the right edge of the net to the left, just enough for the whoever was shooting to hit his shoulder. I think his shoulder pad, or maybe even his neck or something, instead of getting it into the goal. So he did a really good job. It is kind of fun to see him every now and then with his different goalkeeping style compared to Damude.
Oh yeah, and you know he's definitely has a little bit different approach to being a goalie, but and maybe that's where Coach TK really hopes for that kind of difference out there to kind of sway the team towards changing their fortune out there. Yeah, for me, I mean, you already mentioned it, but the Caputo goal in the second quarter, yeah. In fact, I think it was another bounce into the what you call the 5-hole. Yeah, I mean, he was just faking and faking. It's like he just held it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I really liked that goal just to begin with because they were able to get close to the goalie. Again, a lot of our shots during the game were still way far out and not on target. And that was the first, honestly, probably one of the only goals where we were really close and got into their defense more and were able to do something with it. So, yeah, Phil Caputo, that goal was it was really good. I mean, I understand he was the only scorer in the first half, but no, that really helped. But that was my cool cat play of the game for sure. Well, of course, that leads us to our next one, which is our big cat players of the game. Look, I'm going to be honest. I really don't have a lot of players of this game. I mean, I'm honest. This game just wasn't great for me to watch, but I will say this. If I was to say somebody was the big cat player of the game, it's somebody who took advantage of the time that he was given in there, and that's Cam McLeod. They say there can only be one. He definitely held down and did what he was supposed to with the minutes that he was given. I mean, obviously it didn't turn out great in the end and the overall picture, but no, I mean, Cam McLeod came in, he shut them down for the rest of the second quarter, and honestly did really good in the third quarter as well, holding them to 2 goals. So, I mean, he's definitely my big cat player of this game. What about for yourself?
McLeod is actually one of my big cat players of this game as well. Obviously, if he's in there, that generally does mean Damude's either hurt or he's ineffective, or TK just wants to try something else because the team is down. But however, he did make the most of his minutes. 78% on his saves is nothing to sneeze at. It's a really solid number. And who knows, maybe we'll get to the point where we almost have a 2-headed monster in net, the same way that San Diego does with Sciliano and Riglieri. If we can get to that point, that would be excellent. Mm-hmm. I actually did, even though it was kind of a weaker offensive night, I did give Phil Caputo some love for his 2 goals from the first half, as well as he had an assist later on in the game. And just, it's nice to see him continue to play aggressive. And his first goal to tie things up helped kind of give us hope and be like, all right, we're in this. And then his next one did help stop the bleeding after Calgary's 4-goal run. So did give him a little love. There were a few members of the defense that played pretty good as well. Hossack had a pretty solid game. McLean. The defense overall, I would say they did what they could. It just the offensive side this weekend just wasn't quite there.
Well, and like you said, with a team like that, you can only hold them off for so long. You can hold them down for so long until something happens, and unfortunately that thing happened in the second quarter. Well, that's of course our big cat players of the game. Final thoughts on this game in Calgary?
I'm glad it's over with, and at the same time, I'm glad we have one more game against them at home, nonetheless. So it is a bummer that we couldn't come out with an upset given the playoff seeding implications that this could lead to, and also given how hot Colorado's playing as of late. They're kind of
Hmm.
breathing down our necks. But at the same time, hey, just okay, take the loss on the chin, see how you can learn from it, and hopefully the next time you see these guys, as well as the next time we play Vancouver this upcoming weekend, hopefully there's an improvement.
Yeah, the best way I can express it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Panther City. I will root for them. All the guys are great, as we'll talk about here in a little bit. Um, I think they're all. It's a great team, a great coach. I obviously want them to do well. I was a little frustrated with this game because, again, just the fact that a lot more eyes were on it, a lot more people were watching it. When you're the highlighted like NLL game of the week, that means there's a lot of people, especially up in Canada, because it's their one of their big features of the week, and so a lot more people are going to be watching your team than usually are, and I guess this would be my challenge to Panther City going forward. If we're going to succeed, especially with the playoffs coming up, we have to have production from people like Will Malcolm, Donville, Gaucher, Dodds. I know Crawford wasn't in this game, but I mean, those are the kind of people we need in order to succeed. And I know that sounds like some weird rhyme and stuff like that, but it's true. We need production from them. I'm challenging Panther City. I'm challenging their offense. The defense, again, like you said, they held them off at the best they could. I'm challenging the offense not only to come out next week against Vancouver and show up, but come back home and show that we're not that far behind them, because we've had multiple opportunities this season to be like, hey, yeah, we're in the fourth seed, or we're in the fifth seed, or we're in the third seed now, and that's great, but we're better than that. Time is running out on the season. We only have a few games left, and then it's playoffs, and playoffs are win or go home. You can't test things out. You can't wonder about things. You can't worry about things then. It's go time. Coach TK said it before this game. It is still relevant now. It is go time for Panther City.
And they have shown in the past, I know in the first season, what Colorado won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
We actually won the season series against Colorado, and we've played a lot of other elite teams tight as well. So it's certainly doable. And you want, even in a loss, you want to take things away from, if you're able to make the score as respectful as you can. So again, just take this as a learning experience. It's You can say, oh, you messed up or didn't play well for whatever reason. Just okay, keep your eyes forward. Let's finish out the season and win out.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, nothing but love for Panther City. Those guys do amazing things, and I'm so glad that all of them are on our team. But it's time. We're at the point in the season. uh, It's we got to turn on the engine and go. Well, we leave. You know, we leave this game like we did with San Diego. We leave it in the rearview mirror. We forget about it. We move on to the next game. Another road game against Vancouver. Vancouver coming off the exact same loss that we did against Colorado last weekend. They lost 12-5. Honestly, though, I feel like they've kind of played a little bit better. It seems like they've been closer, at least in the last few games, except for that Colorado one. But still not a great season for them overall.
No, and they've been. I think every single game, maybe not every single one, but they always seem to have the lead at some point in the first half, and you're like, oh wow, they might actually be in this. But then when you look at the box score to end things, it's like, what, they lost by, like, in this case 12-5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of unfortunate for them, but um yeah, it's something that, well, if that's a trend, I'm glad we're playing them next.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and so we talked about a few weeks ago with Albany kind of being get back on track game. I mean, do you feel like this is our opportunity to kind of get back on track against Vancouver?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's honestly, in some weird way, it's good that it's a road game because we haven't we don't have the best road record this year. Most of our wins have come at home. So especially if we're gonna be forced to play at least one road playoff game, this will be good in terms of getting getting the guys experience, playing in front of a hostile environment, and playing a team that, when given the opportunity, can actually put points on the board. No, Keegan Ball's probably their star offensive player, and it's a bit of a weird situation in that Vancouver, you probably can play. You can get away with playing a little sloppier early on, just because they don't have the defense to hold a team for an entire 60-minute game. That being said, you don't want to use that as an excuse to come out empty.
Oh yeah, and that's what I wrote down for this game. Again, like I said before, there needs to be output from those key players, especially on offense, but also on defense. I mean, the defense played pretty good off and on this last game. Uh, Man, Damoud, he needs another one of those almost redemption games where he comes out and plays solid for the full 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I think we had mentioned that one goal against him where he those demoralizing ones where like you block it, but it actually somehow still gets in the net.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that shook his confidence or kind of made him lose his focus, at least in Coach TK's estimation. But yeah, I expect him to recover from that and have a good game.
Yeah, and so I guess for my expectations with this game, yeah, Vancouver's still kind of back and forth, like you said. They just can't seem to they can't seem to hold teams back for the whole game. So I hope for a little bit more offense from our side. I mean, you had mentioned it too. There was a few key players we were actually missing in this game against Calgary, right?
Yeah. Brooker Muir was missing on the defensive end, so you saw Messenger and Ronan Pusch actually got quite a bit of time, and Pusch was actually taking some of the faceoffs from Burton against against Calgary. Crawford was probably the big missing piece on offense, and Grennan was out as well. So
Yeah,
those are very important players.
right. And we've talked about so far in the last month or so how Crawford has been kind of an integral part to that offense, kind of being have a veteran sense of things and almost kind of leading the offense around and telling people where to go and setting things up. So definitely something we missed this game. Hopefully he'll be back against Vancouver again. Even if he's not there, we still need that offensive production from our usuals. You know, Donville, Gaucher, Dodds, Malcolm, both Malcolms, uh,
Medeiros,
Medeiros.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Medeiros,
mean even
absolutely.
Medeiros needs to kind of come out. I feel like this team needs to come out on fire. They it's another one of those games where they just kind of they put what happened this week in the rearview mirror and forget about it and move on, but also come out showing, hey, that's not us. And so I think against Vancouver, they have the opportunity to do that. So if they can come out on fire and they can come out consistent, I mean, who knows? This game could be something like we had last year, where we, or was it last year or this year where we blew them out like by 10 goals?
That was this year, right? Well,
Yeah,
this was the we it was like 20-8,
yeah,
I think. Yeah, so it's definitely possible. You'd like to think that both teams have probably improved in that time. I know with us, we've made moves that have improved our offense, but probably have hurt our defense a little bit in terms of losing Burns and Cummings. But given Vancouver's struggles, you would hope that we would still come out with a pretty not big victory, but kind of put our foot down and be like, okay, hey, what you've seen against San Diego, what you've seen against Calgary, that's not us.
right. Well, and so I guess looking at this game, I'm gonna go ahead and predict a win. I don't think it's gonna be a 12 goal deficit win, but I can see us putting some offense together, especially given Vancouver's just kind of lack of putting teams away at all. And I could see us going, yeah, probably like a win, 14-9. Yeah, 14-9. That'd be my guess. What about for yourself?
I'll go 12-8. I think they are going to score a little more against us than they are against Colorado. I think we're still trying to figure out the defense a little bit much, but with former captain Chad Cummings and then Liam Burns both being traded away earlier this year. So I'll spot them some goals just from the what will probably be at least a few discombobulated defensive sequences. But overall, I expect the offense to come out firing, regardless of who's playing in there, because we've got such a stable of talented offensive guys that no matter who's sitting out, in theory, we should be able to put points on the board. I know when Grenier, he's probably played the least games out of the guys in the offensive rotation, but when he's out there, he does good things. So the potential's definitely there to put up big numbers. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with 12-8.
Okay, 12-8. 14-9. No, as long as we keep them under double digit score. So
Yeah. Let's keep that number for Damien.
yeah, well, and I just think that that's a good way to show that the defense is back on track with their plays. If they can keep them under double digits, that says a lot about the defense. But well, of course, we hope for a good win this weekend against Vancouver. We do have to touch on something. So just this week, um, we had an interesting meetup where Panther City players came over not to Fort Worth side, but to the Dallas side of things, and we're at a meetup spot in Plano, Texas. That happened on Monday the 10th. Uh, Andy, unfortunately, I was unable to make it, but you were able and lucky enough to go. How'd that whole thing go?
It was awesome, man. Shout out to both the Panther City team and the players that made it, as well as Lacrosse Unlimited in Plano off of Preston Road. If you're local to the DFW area, I definitely recommend checking that store out. The guys that work there are very knowledgeable. I spoke with I think Riley, who's the regional manager for Lacrosse Unlimited. He was in town from Georgia this week, and the guy who runs the store in Plano is named Isaac. And yeah, really friendly people. Obviously, when I first walked in there, the team was all to the left, and I was wearing my Panther City shirt. So they were like, "Oh, hey, a fan!" So it was really fun chatting with them. We talked about my brief stint playing field lacrosse in high school. Talked about the differences between field and box, how the guys are adjusting to Texas. The players that were there were John Donville, Patrick Foley, Will Malcolm, Nathan Grennan, and Phil Caputo. So shout out to all those guys for taking time out of their schedules to meet some fans and sign some autographs. It was really enjoyable. I ended up we mentioned this in our conversation or our interview with Casey earlier this year, but yeah, the team is so down to earth and easy to talk to and everything. It's like there's no real. Normally, you'd think of there being pressure talking to professional athletes and whatnot, but yeah, they're super approachable, really friendly. So yeah, it was a great time.
Well, and not only that, but you're talking about key players on the team. I mean,
Yeah,
Donville's up for pretty much Rookie of the Year. Will Malcolm was up for, still technically is up for MVP. He has a few games to kind of come back and stake his claim, and then of course Caputo coming off offensive production over the weekend. So it's not just kind of like practice squad and hoping for the best kind of teammates. It's all the real players out there. So that
yeah,
was really cool.
yeah, and I think all of these are local to the DFW market, so they all have. I want to say they all work in this area or at least live here. They fly out to Vancouver. I think the night before that game occurs. So yeah. Again, it was just really cool to talk with them. Really cool to talk with the staff at Lacrosse Unlimited. Again, definitely recommend checking it out. I might have walked away with a stick to try to rekindle my my skills of yesteryear. So we'll
Right.
see how that goes. But yeah, it was definitely a great thing to kind of meet the fans and drum up support for the upcoming games to finish the season.
For sure, for sure. Well, and you even mentioned too, you got some autographs from them. So last season, I have to bring up this story because you talked about it before we hopped on here. So last season, at the end of the year, they had fan appreciation night where everybody got a towel, and we were able to like go meet the team afterwards. And I think there was only two players mainly that we didn't really get a chance to get autographs from. One was Thompson because he was obviously the most popular veteran player on the team, so
Hmm.
everybody just followed him the moment he came out. But other one was Will Malcolm, and what happened today with that?
Oh, it was, when people were asking me like, oh, do you want to get some autographs from us and everything? And I brought my rally towel from last season, and I said, well, I don't have John Donville's because this is his rookie year, but
Hmm.
I also don't have Will Malcolm's because of because of I guess the mob of teenage girls that wanted to get his autograph or take a picture with him at that after that season finale, and all the guys had a good laugh about that. I'm sure they tease him for being a dreamboat or whatever.
Right, right. And just to set you guys up for this story, we were all there just trying to get everybody's autograph. And we were looking for Will Malcolm to get his autograph. And yeah, the moment he stepped out, there was like a sea of girls just coming over with signs and towels for him to
Yeah,
sign.
it was like he was a Beatle or something, or I don't
Right.
know, Justin Bieber.
Right. And then not only that, but then when they were trying to get the team out of there, like he popped his head back in for 2 seconds and all the girls started screaming again. They're like, no, I gotta go. I gotta go. But no, that's awesome that the team came out. Again, shout out to Lacrosse Unlimited here in Plano for setting that up, and hopefully they do that again in the future because I would love to for them to come around this area a little bit more, get the word out more about Panther City, and again just kind of drum up that interest into the team.
Yeah, speaking of that, I don't believe we had brought this up on a previous podcast, but we did meet a member of the PCLC fan club at one of our previous games as well. And basically, they're a group that loves the team and meets. They tailgate before home games in Fort Worth in one of the parking lots, and so they do that. They watch the game together, and they actually meet up afterwards as well. I think they do some events for away games. Unfortunately, Nick and I have been too busy to attend one of those, but just wanted to give them a shout out as well. Basically, you'll have to meet people who are helping drum up support and try to build up not just the team, but the sport of box lacrosse down in this area.
For sure. And honestly, depending on how the playoff game is going to happen, I think that would be a great opportunity because, yeah, they said they do try to set up a screen somewhere, meet up somewhere, have kind of a potluck mentality of everybody bring something, hang out, watch the game, cheer for Panther City. So hopefully we can go to those more so in the future, especially for next year and everything for sure. But yeah, shout out to all those groups, all the fans. Uh, you know, it's it's hard like we've said before, it's hard growing a sport in a state that just has, doesn't know about it as often or doesn't know about it as well as other places do, especially up north. I will say this, and probably I'm going to get in trouble for mentioning this. I don't know if you've noticed this on Instagram, but there is a guy on there. His name is Rad Dad Chad. Have you seen his comments?
I don't think I have. This is on the Cowtown Cats.
Yep. So basically, he came out a few weeks ago talking about because I had commented about Panther City being ranked number 5, and he started going off about how nobody's at the games, who even watches you, who pretty much trying to put Panther City down. And so after this last weekend's loss, he was put us down again, and I said, look, if you, if you listen to our show, I actually said that this was probably going to end in a loss, and we're a growing team, and you gotta give support. So, he probably doesn't listen to our podcast. I invite him to come listen to the podcast and listen to what we have to say because if he sees what Panther City is doing and how they're growing and what they're trying to accomplish, they're on track. It's slow and it's hard, but sometimes that's just how it goes, and you have to keep going no matter how hard it gets.
Absolutely. It's a bit disingenuous to compare a team that's in their second season in a non-traditional market to one to just for example Calgary, who's been around since for over 20 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so these things do take time. I know even just talking to the players, they were surprised that I had played box lacrosse back in the early 2000s and did not know what. Oh no, I had played field lacrosse back in like
Mm-hmm.
2001, 2002 and I didn't have any idea of what box lacrosse was because it's obviously a lot more prevalent north of the border.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just enlightening people, teaching them about the game, telling them, "Hey, this is a great sport to play and it's a great sport to watch and you can come watch the Panther City Lacrosse Club."
For sure, and I think one of his points that he maybe was trying to get at the guy on Instagram is just like in the past, it seems like teams would come and go. They'd be in a place for a few years, and then they'd change to another place or change locations, based on how well they do in that market. I honestly think the NLL as a league right now is in a different mentality than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
We live in a kind of a world right now, sports world right now, where smaller places are getting those opportunities, and they go in knowing that it's going to be a hard sell sometimes, it's going to be a hard market, but if you stay consistent with it eventually pays back. I mean, look at Georgia, for goodness sakes. I've seen some of their games, maybe the same amount of people that we have as far as fans in the stands, but they're still pushing forward, and their team is doing really good right now. So
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Riley, um that employee at Lacrosse Unlimited that I spoke with earlier today, he was talking about how Georgia's basically the lacrosse blew up there over the years just because they stuck with it, and obviously they have the Storm there to cheer for, and so it's done really well on the youth and even the amateur circuit. He's in I think he said it was a 35 and over league where he plays regularly. So yeah, it's just a matter of making sure people know about it. They find out how fun and exciting and interesting it is, and just sticking with it over the years, not feeling too down if either not too many people know about it or you don't see that many at the game. Hey, things take time.
mhm. Yeah, and I mean, Panther City is only in their second year. You can't knock somebody down for only their second year and still consistently growing. Maybe not at the pace that you want them to, but still growing nonetheless. So, uh, again, as always, we encourage people to come out to games, show their support for Panther City, and we definitely need the support here in the coming weeks. We got a final home game in 2 weeks, and then we got probably at this rate, unfortunately, a road playoff game. But even still, if we can get a win on the road, that just means a series that we can get a home game at least. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Who knows? So if nothing else, we'll be there to support them.
That's right. That's right. Well, we hope Panther City can get back on track this weekend with their game against Vancouver, and we hope they can get ready for the postseason here in a few weeks. Thank you guys all, as always, for listening to our show. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and now officially on Twitter. We'll definitely try to be a little bit more active. Twitter is an interesting beast as far as a social media platform, but hopefully we can get in the habit of giving some good in-game commentary, kind of maybe our thoughts as the game is going on. But be sure to check us out on there. Once again, I am Nicholas.
And I'm Andy.
And thank you guys again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again. Cheers, y'all.
Yo.